Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Bravo Book Reviews. We're going to be looking at an old Southern Baptist Sunday school book. Excuse me. Studies in Luke's Gospel by Dr. Frank Stagg. Now, I can't remember if I found this one in my grandmother's attic or if I had gotten it from a former associational director. Excuse me. Of the local churches of which I was one of which I was a member of. All right, so a little bit about Dr. Stagg. He lived from 1911 to 2001. He was a Cajun, born and raised in Louisiana. Pretty extensive educational history. In 1934, he received a Bachelor in Arts from Louisiana College, now called Louisiana Christian University. 1938, he receives a Master's in Theology from Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. 1943, he received a PhD from the same school. In 1948, he went on an advanced study in Union Theological Seminary, not to be confused with Union University in Tennessee. This is a very liberal seminary up in New York. In 1953, he went on advanced studies in the University of Edinburgh, Scotland, and in the University of Basel, Switzerland. I think I'm pronouncing that right. From 53 to 54. In 1955, he received an LLD from Louisiana College. In 1967 to 68, he went on advanced studies with the University of Tübingen, Germany. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And in between there, from 41 to 44, he was a pastor of First Baptist Church in De Ritter, Louisiana. He did have a wife, Evelyn, and they were a very progressive couple for their time. He was a very progressive theologian, as a pacifist, and he was an egalitarian. He supported his wife, Evelyn, as she tried to be ordained as a minister and fought for ordination of women within the Southern Baptist Convention. He wrote several other books in addition to this one. The Book of Acts, Early Struggles for an Unhindered Gospel, Exploring the New Testament, The Holy Spirit Today, Polarity of Man's Existence in a Biblical Perspective, Woman in the World of Jesus with his wife Evelyn, and he contributed to many others. All right, so being that this is a this was a Sunday school book from the Southern Baptist Convention, it was published by Convention Press, and the Convention Press was begun in 1955 by the Southern Baptist Convention's Sunday School Board, which was the precursor to Lifeway. And the Convention Press was their educational materials publication arm. They didn't publish just books about individual books of the Bible, but other topics as well. I've got a book that I currently can't locate, unfortunately, called Found Faithful by Merrill D. Moore. That is an absolutely outstanding book, even though it was published in the mid-50s, I think. whenever I can find it, I'll have to do a review on it. But this particular book was published in 1967. So this book was actually part of a whole series of Sunday school books, just like this. I've got a handful of similar books. I'll post a picture of them on the screen now. And these are part of a whole Sunday school curriculum, and by that I don't mean that these are standalone books, or these were standalone books. They were they used film strips, slides, videos, that sort of thing, in addition to this book, to teach their lessons. So, reading this book, it seems like Sunday school back in the day used to be a lot more rigorous. This thing's even got an exam in the back of it. So, Dr. Stagg wrote this book. Well, it reads kind of like a cross between a commentary and a textbook, like a college textbook. And I kind of think that that's pretty much what he was going for. It doesn't exegete, verse by verse, but it kind of looks at larger blocks of the book of Luke here. It's pretty scholarly. Like I was saying that it was pretty rigorous. It's got requirements for credit for class or home study. You have to go through a whole. It's almost like Sunday school used to be more like an actual school. So Dr. Stagg divided this book into 5 parts, what he considered to be natural divisions within the book of Luke. You have the introduction of the Gospel of Luke from Luke 1 through 4. Preparation for the ministry. Let me pull this up. Luke 1:5 to 4:13. 39. Jesus' ministry in Galilee, Luke 4:14 to 9:50. Page 73. Journeying towards Jerusalem, Luke 9:51 to 19:27. Page 115. And finally, Jesus' ministry in Jerusalem, Luke 19:28 to 24:53. So, there's various helps for the teacher to help the Sunday school teacher who might not have any kind of theological training or formal theological training Dr. Stagg recommends, at least 2 different translations to teach with this book. It's got a schedule. So, let's take a look at the physical condition of the book. As you can see, it's a little beat up. Honestly, it's been bouncing around in my car and my bag for a little while as I've been reading it. It's also, like I said, I think this is one that I got from my grandma's attic. And attics can be pretty heat intensive. So I don't know if the camera will show it, but that front cover is a little curved, a little bent there. It's got the occasional dent in it. It's got a little stain here. What looks like a little bit of water damage along the edge of the pages. I don't know if you can see that. The pages themselves, I don't know if they were originally this color or if they kind of aged into this color. And I don't know if you can also see that, but the pages themselves are a little kind of crinkled. Not necessarily wrinkled, but yeah, they're a little crinkled up. But there's no torn pages, no missing pages. I just got this little piece of paper here as a bookmark. But yeah, overall it's in actually really good shape for having been published. I don't know, math escapes me at the moment, but it was published in 1967. I think I'd mentioned that. Library of Congress catalog card number, if that tells you anything about how old it is. So my conclusion and whether or not I can recommend it, yes, but with a caveat. And in order to explain that caveat, I have to set this aside for 1 minute and get on to a soapbox right quick. So there exists 2 foundational starting points for biblical scholars. There's a Christian foundation and a secular foundation. The Christian foundation is where every Christian should start from. And it starts with the presupposition that God is in fact real, and that the Bible is in fact His holy, inerrant, and inspired word. And if these are, and if those 2 presuppositions are in fact correct, then that means that the Bible must have been written as we Christians believe it to be. And what that means is that who we believe the authors to be were in fact the authors. Excuse me. Like for instance, we Christians believe that Moses did in fact write the Torah, the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, what the Jews call the law. We do in fact believe that the eponymous writers of the gospel did in fact write their gospels, and that they did not need each other as sources. Obviously they could have spoken with each other, but I don't think they didn't necessarily need to use each other as sources. It is assumed by many non-Christian scholars, secular scholars, that if they wrote them at all, that Matthew and Luke used Mark as a source and or some proto-gospel source that they call Q, or that all three of the synoptic gospels used some proto-gospel source. We as Christians do not and should not believe that. I won't get into the scholarship behind it, because this isn't the place for it. But that is the primary, that's the foundational starting point for biblical scholarship, that we Christians should start with. Secondarily, the second starting point, as you can imagine, is the secular scholarship. And this starting point presupposes that God does not exist and therefore cannot be the inspiration for the Bible. Therefore, it is not inerrant. It is not inspired. The Bible could not have been written as we Christians believe it to be. Well, we Christians and Jews. I have to state that, because 2/3 of the Bible is what we Christians call the Old Testament. They believed that Moses was some mythological figure and could not have written the gospel, could not have written the law that we believe him to have written. I think they think that they believe that there were multiple sources for the law, and that Ezra, the writer of the Old Testament book that bears his name, compiled these sources. I explained about the Gospels and the so-called Q thing, and using Mark as a source. So those are two basic foundational starting points for biblical scholarship. The problem for Christians is when secular scholarship starts invading Christian scholarship. Unfortunately, this is taking place, to where even otherwise solidly Christian, even pastors, believe that, for instance, that Luke and Matthew used Mark as a source, and they used that proto gospel Q source or whatever. And this is the problem with Dr. Stagg. He believed this exact same thing. He doesn't just pose this as a possibility. He states this as fact. Let me pull it up at the very beginning. He says, quote, if Luke used Mark as is generally recognized, he does believe that Luke was written much later after Mark. Well, not necessarily much later, but anyway, that's my caveat. Beware that Dr. Stagg believes in the usage of Mark as a source for Luke. We shouldn't believe that. There's no actual evidence for that, but that discussion is beyond the scope of this review. So, like I said, I recommend it, but as a caveat. So like I said before, this was part of a whole series of books like this. I'll post again the picture of the handful of books that I got. But I would love to get my hands on a lot more, as many as I can. I'd love to collect these books. So if you have some, I have any, and I want to get rid of them, I'll post my Twitter and Facebook handle in the description below. I'll see if I can't find another way to purchase this if you're looking to get it for yourself. So anyway, that has been a review of Studies in Luke's Gospel by Dr. Frank Stagg. Hopefully you've enjoyed this review. I greatly appreciate y'all indulging me, and I will talk to y'all next time. So until next time, go with God.